Here we go. Atoms, nuclear interaction. Best way to start is by having this guy.
Apparently, it can turn you into a superhero or into a mutant zombie. It's the plot device for probably half of the sci-fi movies made in the last 60 years, and it's even the name of the song that welcomes you to the new age. To the new age, welcome to the new age. Presumably this new age occurring after some kind of apocalypse. As principles of chemistry go, few figure more prominently in the popular imagination than radioactivity, but at the same time, few are as completely misunderstood. Most people think of radioactivity as just something that mutates genes and melts faces off. And yes, some forms of radioactivity can do those things. But all the more reason to understand it, right? And also we can harness it to produce lots of electricity to fuel our rock and roll lifestyles without contributing to global warming, though, as Fukushima has taught us, it comes with some of its own problems, which we'll explore more next episode. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of nuclear chemistry, like nuclear fission and why it's so awesome, as well as fusion and why it's so hard to do, we'll first get to know radioactivity. What it is, what different kinds there are, and why you don't really need to fear it. At least, you know, not all the time.
All right. So, radiation. What is it? One of the most misunderstood concepts in chemistry. Let's tackle it step by step. Are all atoms always unchanging? Will they always be the same way since the moment of their birth? No. Some atoms do change and become other types of atoms. And in that is the very essence of radiation. Why? What is radiation? Radiation is the energy or teeny tiny little particles that are emitted when atoms break up. So radiation is the energy or particles that are released when atoms break up. So what is radioactive decay? It is the actual process by which an atom breaks up. So when an atom explodes, when it breaks up, we say that it has decayed. So if you have a friend that has an emotional meltdown, you could say, hey, they decayed. Especially if they become somebody new after the emotional outburst.
You say a man.
All right, so the first target we're going to deal with is I can explain the energy transformations when an electron moves from one level to another. What is some of this energy in the form of? When we say that an atom decays, it blows up, and it releases energy, what is it in the form of? We call it high energy, EM, electromagnetic radiation. High energy electromagnetic radiation. High energy electromagnetic radiation. Okay, so let's go through all the different properties of this EM radiation that we've been talking about. Number one, it's a form of energy. So we say it has no mass. A form of energy with no mass. With no mass. It travels at the speed of light, which is 186,000 miles per second.
What if I could run that fast?
Then you would win a lot of races.
That'd be cool.
It can travel through a vacuum, unlike sound. Sound requires air. That's why if we were in a vacuum, this is what you would be hearing me say.
I'm a bad lip reader.
Okay? For those of you who could not read my lips, you would not be hearing anything because there would be no air to transmit the sound. So that's why in space no one can hear you scream.
What makes people's different?
What?
Different voices. Like, why do
Vocal cords.
It's your vocal cords, the way they're constructed. Yeah.
goes there?
Yeah.
Vacuum is spelled really weird.
It really is.
It is.
Vacuum.
Number 4, emitted by atoms when they decay or when they are energized, like in a light bulb.
You did not give us enough space for our energizers. I got big hammer.
Well, use a smaller font size. Moves in bundles of energy called photons. So you get hit every time you're hit with light, you get hit with photons of light.
That's cool.
Each photon will have its own frequency.
But dude.
The higher the frequency, the higher the energy, the more dangerous. The higher the frequency, the higher the energy, the more dangerous it is to us. Go back to number 3. What's the problem with Star Wars in number 3?
They're in space.
They are in space, and every space battle has these cool TIE fighter sounds. And now that you know real science, what should the Star Wars movie have sounded like? So when the explosion occurred, you would have heard nothing, just expanding gases and the music, John Williams music, which should have been enough, but no. They had to have this big giant explosion, which made us all science geeks go, oh, that's unrealistic.
But it's cool.
And even R2-D2 going, you can't, not in space, no sound.
Not acceptable.